people do make big decisions that cost big money. And if you're treating it as, just another day because you don't see the value in what you're doing, you're not helping your business, you're not helping yourself.
The role that AI can play in a business to achieve a couple of key outcomes. First of all, how to reduce some of the major costs, and largely in the space of team overheads, things like that.
I think if we start at basic first principles, we've got two things going on. We've got brand identity, which is, as you quite rightly point out, it is the values that you and your company have. It is how you communicate. And then you've got brand voice. And that is the consistency of your coloring and what you're saying across platforms and across time.
Lee, hello, welcome to the thesiteshed podcast.
G'day, thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. Thanks for your patience. I know we had a bit of a hiccup on the last attempt at this, but we're here now.
Excellent, and I'm looking forward to a good session.
Absolutely. So thanks for joining us. We're here today to discuss, I suppose, some of the dynamics around business communication, specifically in the space of, I suppose, like businesses' voice, and maybe even individuals' voice that are representing businesses, which we could probably touch on as part of the personal brand shift that we're seeing pretty commonly happen these days. I love this conversation because it's super relevant to what we do with our clients in the space of sort of helping them position themselves as the expert within their vertical, which we like to reflect across digital media, their websites, social media sometimes, and then certainly when we're, running ads and then communicating with their prospects off the back of, leads that they've generated and that kind of stuff. So I absolutely know the value of this, and I'm super pumped to have you on the show as an expert in this space, someone that's got a lot of runs on the board. I feel like sometimes my clients get sick and tired of hearing it from me, so it's always good to have it come from someone else.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Yeah,
it's like kids, right?
Yeah, or that's old, what is it, biblical thing where a prophet is not recognized in his own town.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So, mate, give us a bit of a rundown as to who you are and what you do.
Yeah, okay. I've been involved with business communication with small and medium-sized businesses for about 30 years. I was at the forefront of social media when it landed in Australia in 2004, social media for businesses. I was the first first podcaster and then first vidcaster in Australia for social media for business. Went around the world talking to large and small and government enterprises about social media for business, and have been writing copy and building websites and doing whatever I can to help businesses communicate better for better results.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, like, it's such an important thing. And again, we've got a lot of things to uncover here and I suppose explore on a topical basis. But I can't drive home how important it is for us as an agency that's trying to help a business really reflect and communicate that professional, representation. Like, so often they're so good at what they do, but just so bad at telling it.
Yeah.
And so trying to extract that sometimes, like trying to, squeeze blood out of a stone. But, hopefully we can leave the listeners and viewers today with a few nuggets there and some ideas on, how they can best go about that and set them on their way.
I think one of the key things is that, we may know our business, but not every one of us can communicate that well. Maybe they can't get the words out that other people have no problem getting words out. Some can't.
I find as well, maybe it's very often they'll try and communicate the things that they would like to hear themselves. Like, so they, especially, businesses that have quite a technical product or service or whatever, it's very common and very easy to slip into that trap of trying to communicate to your audience the way that you would want to hear things, which doesn't parlay because I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And technicians, engineers, that sort of thing, it'd be very easy for them to do that because they're wrapped up in what they do. They love what they're doing, but they talk as though they're talking to a peer, but they're not talking, as you quite rightly point out, to someone who doesn't understand their lingo, doesn't understand their jargon, and has no clue what they're trying to, be sold.
One of the big things that that we really try to work on, like in the interest of, I suppose, brand identity, is how to differentiate through just something as simple as storytelling. How you can how you're different to your competitors. And I think it's really common, and you probably have far more insight into this than I do, but I see it all the time where people just they have this. And largely due to the fact that they just do it all day, every day, but they think what they're doing is boring to everyone else, when in reality it's only boring to them.
Yeah.
We have we work with these amazing bathroom renovations and kitchen renovations and all this kind of stuff, and they're like, well, what I want to, how could I showcase any of that content? It's just so boring. It's just a bathroom renovation. Like, what the hell? Like, these people, it's one of the biggest investments people will ever make in their life, and they're so excited about it. Anyway.
And so it's, shows like The Block, you make you realize that, this is important, that, people do make big decisions that cost big money. And if you're treating it as just another day because you don't see the value in what you're doing, you're not helping your business, you're not helping yourself.
So let's dive into brand identity, and let's dive into brand and identity, because as I've said before, there's that real movement you see towards personal brand, and this is something that we've seen become more and more apparent over recent years, where essentially your personal brand is the direct reflection of the company. People are coming to your company, but they're coming to your company very often with this being because of the brand that you've personally built around whatever it might be. So I'd love to get some insight into that.
I think we can start, if we start at basic first principles, we've got two things going on. We've got brand identity, which is, as you quite rightly point out, it is the values that you and your company have. It is how you communicate. It is your underpinning reputation, I guess you can look at it. And then you've got brand voice. And that is the consistency of your coloring and what you're saying across platforms and across time. So if you can nail those two, and storytelling is such, as you quite rightly point out, storytelling is such an important component of this. If you can nail them, then you're going to have a much easier life being able to talk to prospects, because they'll get what you're trying to help them with straight away.
I see so much cliche when it comes to, the brand identity with the vision and the mission and the values and all this kind of stuff, and people putting just what I call, permission to play things, which, they'll try and communicate on their website because I think it's doing them a favor. Stuff like, we're trustworthy, we're reliable, we're fully licensed and insured. You're like, give me a freaking break.
Yeah.
Just stupid shit. I mean, maybe through no fault of their own, but I really want to explore, I suppose, in your experience, how people can really go about first ascertaining what that brand identity is for them and their business, and then second of all, how the hell to communicate it in a way that doesn't sound cliche.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you're absolutely right. And the challenge when you're getting into the game, maybe it's your first business you're launching, is that you see all these other websites and TikTok and Insta and everyone's doing this stuff. And you're absolutely right. It's cliche to all buggery, but they don't know any different because they see everyone else doing it. This must be the way it's going to be done. And so they then perpetuate it. But if we come back to what you mentioned a little bit earlier, Matt, where you look at storytelling, and if you can weave together a story which tells, it takes the reader of your website, whatever, on a journey. It takes them from where you start. You help them solve their problem, their challenge, take their headache away, and then finish it for them so they're deliriously happy. That's the story you want to tell, and you want to tell it with pictures in their head, but also pictures, you've taken of their kitchen reno that you've done.
Yeah, apologies for any of your listeners and viewers that have heard me tell this story before, but we had a client. One of the things that we like to do with our marketing programs is obviously showcase. Like, don't tell me, show me. Let's showcase some of the projects you've done. We call them project galleries, whatever. We have a really nice framework for that, and we're working with a plumbing client of ours who's based in Sydney. And I was just, again, trying to extract blood from a stone from this guy because he was convinced that what he did was boring all the time. And it's just sometimes putting a different lens on something, in the interest of storytelling, which can make a huge difference. And essentially his side of the story was, like when I was saying, what have you done this week that we can communicate through a project gallery? And he said, well, nothing. I was like, I go, what did you do yesterday? He goes, well, I went and cleared a block drain. I'm like, okay, well, where? And he goes, that's down in Kirribilli. And I'm like, so Kirribilli, for anyone that doesn't know, in the Sydney sort of harbour side, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, like big house. And he goes, well, yeah, actually, it was the Kirribilli house. And I'm like, well, that's where the Prime Minister lives, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay. So all of a sudden, we've got this. I did nothing interesting except clear a block drain. We cleared the Prime Minister's house's block drain at a heritage-listed waterfront Sydney iconic location. It's the same thing, but it's just told differently, right?
Mm.
So sometimes I think you just got to, like, it's not always obvious, but you got to pull the blinkers off to kind of really understand how you can take something that's seemingly boring and spin it in a way that, well, okay, this is actually good content.
Yeah.
Good story.
Yeah, and sometimes you've got to be outside of the business to be able to do that, because if you're in the business, sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. And that's where people like me, make a bit of a living, because we can stand outside and go, as you did, well, why didn't you talk about clearing the drain in Kirribilli House? It's just such a brilliant story. But if you're in there, cleaning drains, you just don't see that.
Yeah, sure. There's, I know I've read some good books on story creation in the past, Donald Miller and all these kind of things, Story Brand. Is there like a typical framework that you like to deploy or recommend to people in the interest of telling stories well?
I think,
like for context, Donald Miller does the whole, the hero and the blah, 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 and all those kind of different.
Yeah, I mean, there are some literary devices like, the hero's journey and all that sort of stuff. But I think if you're starting out, you don't want to make it too complex. You're not looking to, get a degree in creative writing. So just think about your prospect client. Have a client in your head, or print it off the internet and stick it to your monitor, a picture of that ideal client. And then imagine what their biggest pain point is, and then solve it. And say, you started here, this is their pain point, and this is how I solved it, and this was the result from the client. And there's your story.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be super complicated. I know typically we say to clients, like, who, what, why, where, when, how. Like, just answer those things and just...
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's the story directed at? Why is it important? What do we do here? How do we solve the problem? When did we do it? And, what was the outcome? Like, what did
you've got to have the outcome. Absolutely. Yeah, but you've also got to have the pain point. There's got to be an emotional reason why the client is happy with your work. They've got some pain and you've taken their pain away. That's the nugget. Yeah.
That's the context, you guys. Like, the pain point is not they've got a blocked drain. The pain point is the fact that there's sewer surcharging in their bathroom.
Yes.
And like, you'll go clear the blocked drain, but the pain point is not that. The pain point is there's sewer coming up in my apartment, or whatever it might be, right? The pain point might be our bathroom is just that dated and terrible that when people walk into it, it's embarrassing. Like, that's the pain point. What you do is renovate the bathroom. So don't get caught up in trying to communicate too much the thing, communicate the outcome.
The reader doesn't want to know about what size, wood that you use, is whether a 4x2 or whatever. They don't need to know that. What they need to know is what the result was and how happy the client was.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. Like, only this morning, actually, we were having this conversation with a client while we're building out their artificial intelligence like bot, and they're giving us all this jargon and stuff. I'm like, listen, no one knows what you're talking about. Like, we need to be prompting the AI to say things that are relevant to what they need to hear, not what you think they want to hear. No one cares about these things.
Absolutely. And that's, I mean, to segue very cleanly and nicely into AI, that's what AI is really good at. If you give ChatGPT or Claude or whatever engine you want to use, if you give it some background material, including the boring bits, but you put it in the background, you don't put it in the stuff that it's actually going to output. It gets some context around what you're looking for. And then if you ask it in the prompt, and the prompt is where the gold is. If you ask it in the prompt to output this particular thing with that particular result, and the client was, it will do it, and it'll come out a lot cleaner and a lot quicker than if you spent hours and hours and hours away from your trade business trying to string the words together. Just use AI.
Yeah, I think that's super important. I know a lot of the tools, like when you're setting up a Perplexity account, for example, if you guys haven't used that, I encourage it. It's pretty cool. But, you can actually enter your brand voice into it. Like, it will ask you questions all about you. So I was like, oh, okay, well, this is how I communicate. This is what I sound like. And it basically, it was then, once it understands that, it can then sort of create, content, which is more in line with how you would actually create it yourself. But, going back to what you said there about prompting, like, it is so important that you have those things dialed in on the AI front, especially in the interest of having uniquely created content. And people sometimes, I feel you see it a lot where people sort of dismiss AI and a lot of these tools, Claude and things like that, because they're like, oh, well, it's not genuine. But the shift in the dynamic that I've seen is you're sort of taking the emphasis now into building out the frameworks for the AI to be able to deliver the content according to how you want it. And quite truthfully, I've literally spent days building out a prompt, like days. Yeah. 3-4 days. I remember building out one prompt to do something specifically for me. And so there's a lot of work that went into it, but then the outcome of the back of it was really strong. So it was, and it still would have saved a shit ton of time and without spelling errors.
Yes. Well, I mean, and the nice thing about writing a good prompt, I'll mention two things here. One, Forbes, the magazine, about 6-8 weeks ago, ran a special on prompt engineers and how much you can expect to earn as a prompt engineer. Now, this is based in America, not anywhere else in the world. You could buy your own bloody island after 2 years of doing prompt engineering. You are paid phenomenal amounts of money because it's so important. Now, the second thing, I'll go back to the 70s because, yes, I'm that old. In the 70s, computer programmers had a word that they lived and died by, and that word is GIGO. G-I-G-O, garbage in, garbage out. And if you wrote crap prompt, then you'll get crap results. But if you write a good prompt and you can use AI to help you write that prompt, then you'll have a phenomenally much better result.
Yeah, sure. The social media, let's make a shift into social media here. Actually, let's just pause for a second until whoever's out of your kitchen.
Yeah.
Picking up terribly.
I'm on a call. Thanks.
Is that the wife?
No, I've got a lodger living here.
Oh, okay.
Gone. So, yes, you were saying.
Let's make a bit of a segue, I suppose, into social media. Waste of time, valuable investment. I have some insight into this. I'd love to hear yours as well. I think typically a lot of businesses, like a conversation I had only this morning, actually, with someone saying, "Oh, we're looking to someone to manage our social media," and I think that sounds good to some people, but I don't think they truly understand what that actually means and why it can be an absolute detraction from the actual goal of what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Social media is one of those things where if you've got the resources to pour into it, you can have huge results, but you've got to put the time in. And it's, it's a 5, 6 or 7 day a week full-time job, just creating content and then getting the content out there, because that's another, challenge. And yes, there are tools to help you do that, but you've still got to load up the tools with, the calendars and everything. But if you're starting out, or if you've just got a solo business or a small business, my number one tip is only do one social platform at a time. So, if you're good with video, for example, and you can hold up your iPhone and give good video, then just do that, and do that until you feel really confident and you've got it down pat. Then if you want to move across to TikTok, then, take on TikTok as well. But just start one at a time. Do not try and be across everything at once when you're starting out, because you will be overwhelmed by having to learn and do so many things. It'll take you away from your core business, and it's just a hiding to nothing, and you'll get demoralized and feel that you're crap. So don't do it.
My experience a lot, I mean, obviously as a digital agency, we run a lot of paid marketing campaigns for business, and they come to us and they say, oh, we want someone to take post to our social media pages and things. And my response to that typically is, well, what does the outcome need to look like for this to be a win for you? Because if you're trying to get your family and friends that follow your Facebook page because they like you but have no interest in ever buying anything from you, if you want them to like your post, then fine, that's a good idea. But if you actually want to generate work, then it's probably going to be a waste of everyone's time and your money. So I think just having a clear understanding of what the outcome is going to be for the thing. Like if you're going to invest into social media, what does that look like? People don't really truthfully understand in 90% of the time that doing, inverted commas, social media and social media advertising are two different things. I post to social groups, and I'm like, or community groups. I'm like, that's great, but that's kind of like modern day word of mouth. You're not running ads. Like if you want the algorithm to, pick up your ads and show it to people that actually give a shit about what you do, you got to spend money on platform. It's a business.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of a misconception there, I think.
And it's not naivety. It's just simply lack of experience. You haven't built the social, the experience in the social media world yet. And you're quite right. The advertising and hopping onto Facebook groups are two completely different things.
Sure. So when we're talking about brand identity and voice, it's let's talk about some strategy. Let's give people some, I suppose, somewhere to start with this, because I mean, sure, everyone can go open up a ChatGPT account and start creating content, but for what? What's the actual point here? What does the gameplay look like? What's your take on strategizing this whole thing?
I think you need to start with what result are you looking for? You need to start with the end goal. Are you looking to build visitors to your Instagram page? Are you looking to create leads? All of that those sort of decisions will impact on the words that you use, the imagery that you use, and you really do need to start with what you're looking for as your end result first before you do anything else.
I mean, I think that's kind of pretty much a metaphor for business.
You got to know why you're in business. Yeah, absolutely.
What are the goalposts?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Truthfully, it's where most businesses, I think, don't optimize. It's in that strategic conversation. Quite honestly, even myself at the moment, we've just been so busy doing the thing that we've sacrificed strategy as a result of that, which is not really acceptable. But the reality is, especially coming into the new year, this is the time of year when most people start to think about what does next year look like? What do I plan on? What are the goals that I want to achieve? I mean, a goal without a strategy to me is a wish.
Yes.
If you don't, and it's always, I find, very empowering to look at the strategy and then look at the breakdown of the stepping stones that you need in order to get to that goal at the end there, to realize I probably don't have to do that much to get that thing.
I'm going to do a plug here. Before social media, but way back in the 90s, I did a degree in psychology and sociology. On the back of my research project that I did in my final year, I looked at the goal setting literature, both, the gurus of the day and also the psychology, the science. And I wrote a book which is still on my Amazon page and still sells well, about goal setting and what you can do to set goals and achieve them. And it takes one little twist that the vast majority of the gurus don't tell you, because perhaps they don't know. But there's a little concept called the possible self. And that is, you imagine yourself at some stage in the future having got what you want. And that is one of the key differences. And the books, on my Amazon page, if you it's called How to Be Your Possible Self, and it's a goal setting book, and I think pretty bloody good one.
I'll definitely go and look that up. Just remind me after this call, and I'll put some links to it in the show notes so I don't go looking at it now. I'd love to discuss as well. I know we sort of kind of have started down this path, but I want to talk specifically about the role, and obviously I have insight to this from what we're doing right now, so we'll make this a bit of a collaboration, but the role that AI can take now in the space of a brand identity, voice, and things like that in order to achieve whatever the outcomes might be. I don't know, typically for us, like when we're working with clients now, the obstacles that we're trying to achieve are things that, like take, for example, when we run ads for clients, speed to lead. We know we can have like an AI agent now which can answer those leads immediately and do it extremely well. Or it might be a phone call coming into the business, AI agent answers it, does the first layer of triage, figures out if it's emergency, blah, 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 whatever, passes it on, like that kind of thing, right? So that's kind of from our perspective, they're the pain points. Like we're like, okay, we can generate the leads, but if you're not answering them, then what? It normally turns around and goes, your leads are crap. It's like, not our lead. You didn't answer your twit, so so that's kind of that's been a huge game shifter for us. But while we're going through this exercise, it's extremely important that when we're, creating the prompting and all that kind of stuff for the agent, that we are communicating the brand voice and the identity, and you were making that a true reflection of the business. And that's not an easy thing, truthfully. Like that's a bit of an ongoing. It's like showering. You kind of got to keep doing that. You can't just do it once and say, right, showered.
Right. This time next year, I'm going to have another one. Yeah. I think the wonderful thing about AI, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, is you do it once and then it's there. So you get all your background material, you do your hard thinking about what your values are, what sort of stuff you want, and then you go to these tools, most of which are free. You can go to Adobe Express and come up with brand colors. It'll sort it for you, and templates for how you want your socials to look. You go to ChatGPT. There's a free model of ChatGPT, and you get it to outline because ChatGPT is brilliant at outlining stuff. Not very good for writing words, but brilliant for outlining stuff. You then go to the free version of Claude, and you take the outline from ChatGPT, you put it into Claude and say, write this, and you put all your background material in there, so you only have to do it once. It creates a voice for you, and it will do whatever you ask it to do from then on in for your business. It'll come out in exactly the same voice, no matter years down the track, exactly the same voice. Brilliant.
Yeah. It is. It's funny you say that about like the content that GPT writes is just that bad. I find like it just looks like by GPT 100% of the time.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I do the same thing as you. Actually, I like to help GPT come up with the frameworks which I'll deploy in other tech like Perplexity or whatever it might be.
I love Perplexity. I mean, even on the free model, you ask it to do something, like create a set of questions so that you can figure out what your brand identity and your values and all that stuff is, and out it comes. It's 20 seconds, it's there. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty clever. and I think these, a lot of these integrations now that are happening, like you could look at the new, iOS updates and all this kind of stuff, which are, integrating that AI aspect. I mean, like for years, Apple's been claiming that Siri's AI, Siri is the worst Well, it was anyway. It was atrocious, the inability to link between apps and all this kind of carry on, which, they're piece by piece resolving. But again, we're kind of scratching the surface on this whole thing. But I think looking at the role that AI can play in a business to achieve a couple of key outcomes. First of all, how to reduce some of the major costs, and largely in the space of team overheads, things like that. And then from our experience, just improving the customer experience, for the customers, having when somebody calls in and an agent can answer that, even if it is AI immediately, that's a good customer experience. Even though, sometimes they're like, oh, okay, I want to speak to a human. I don't want to speak to AI. That's fine. But the reality is, if it wasn't answered, that call was going to go to the next person on the list on Google who they're going to call, who does answer the phone. Yeah. So, it's had a big impact on conversions.
There's a colleague of mine who is based in France, rural France, and he spends a lot of his time working with medium-sized companies, and every company, small or big, has got a list, a spreadsheet or something of leads that they've never been able to follow up on because they don't have the staff or the time or whatever. So they've got this huge database of leads. Yeah. AI can just contact them by text, ask them, just 3 months, 6 months, 12 months ago, you contacted us about a kitchen reno. Are you still interested? Let us know either way.
We actually do that for clients. We call it DBR, database reactivation. We've literally had off one campaign a couple of weeks ago, one client get $300,000 worth of work in a week. Just off the one. It's insane. We're actually running a promo at the moment. This podcast will come out well beyond that, so it won't be any relevance. But we're looking for case studies and stuff, and it's insane. We're yet to see it fail. Honestly, it's just incredible how powerful that is. And for the reason that you say, it's so common for our clients to go out there and quote a job and then not get the job or not hear back from them, and then just get caught up being busy, and they never get back to it, and we can solve that problem now. So we've got this amazing ecosystem where we'll literally we'll have AI at the forefront when the leads come in, the communications happen there, that it gets sent through to various stages of a sales cycle, which then gets sent through to a human for the ultimate qualification at the end of the day to make sure they're actual legit. And then, the DBR stuff, which just runs in the background. So every, 30 days after a lead comes in, it just reactivates, and conceptually it's a case of, these leads that we got sitting in here, which are seemingly dead or certainly stagnant, let's just qualify them, re-qualify them, and then remove them. If they're interested, cool. If they're not interested, cool. But even your database, if they're not interested and they're not going to engage, then just go away. You're better off having a smaller database of engaged contacts and a large database of complete garbage. And we see it all the time.
Well, that comes back to the social media model, doesn't it? In that, you could have what value to you is it to have 10,000 followers on your Insta if none of them are customers? None of them are going to buy.
Again, and this kind of ties back to what I was saying before about, is it a waste of time or a valuable investment? Because I think sometimes people get so caught up with how many Instagram likes they've got as opposed to how much work it's driven, Yeah. And I also think, and I firmly believe, because I see it all the time, even with, I removed Instagram from my phone months and months and months ago because I just found it a massive time suck. But the amount of people that use use it as an excuse, or they use business as an excuse to have the tool. I just wanted to zone out here, which is fine, but don't write it off as something that you're doing productively for your business. You're just looking at sport highlights and chicks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I took Facebook off my phone because because I'm old. Facebook is my platform of choice. It's where all my friends are. So I took Facebook off my phone because I was just scrolling for hours and complete waste of time.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually put Facebook back on, but then we run a lot of ads and stuff like that. So I kind of want to keep my finger on the pulse to a degree with those kind of things. And we have
totally understand that. Yeah,
members in it and all this kind of carry on. But I know what you mean. You've got to be super disciplined with it because it's so easy just to open up Instagram or social and then see all these bell ring comments that you feel compelled to go and check for whatever reason, and it's just this vortex. But anyway,
the other dangerous thing about social media is that it's people are showing their best lives. You don't see people when they've had a bad day, when they've kicked the cat,
exactly.
but you know they're looking fabulous. And you know, oh, I've just had this wonderful meal at this particular restaurant, and the wine was beautiful. And you know, nah, not real.
Exactly. It's horseshit. Oh, it was funny. I've got a guy here at the moment just doing some repairs on the pool, and he was saying how like there's, and I don't know how true this is because the first time I'd heard it, but apparently there's like a call within Parliament now to ban social media for kids under the age of 15 or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to go through. And all the politicians from both sides, everyone's behind it. The child advocacy.
They're agreeing on something.
Yeah, I know. It comes as a shock to me as well. Yeah.
I mean, I suppose it would be hard for the libs to turn around and say, "No, that's a terrible idea." Like,
yeah, no, they would. That would not do them any good at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's probably I mean, we probably digress a bit here off topic, but yeah, I think it's definitely has merit. I mean, of course, you know, and I was like, you know, I've got young children, and one of them's going to school, you know, next year, and she's, you know, they've got like part of their curriculum which is involving iPads and technology, and I think this is good because like that, it's not going anywhere. Like you can't bury their head in the sand and like pretend it doesn't exist, especially at like at an academic level. Like I'd much rather see the kids go to school and learn how to code than go to school and, you know, like
learn algebra or something.
Well,
yeah,
I mean, exactly. Like all this. I mean, I'm not suggesting that like math and things like that are not important, but then you look at the tools that you're just always going to have available today, and then I question that as well when you look at like, you know, the implementation of AI and how that's growing. Like, what's that going to do to English, and what's that going to do to, you know, legal studies and all this kind of stuff? When all of a sudden it's just going to become a case of people leveraging like the resources they've got, the tools to get the outcome. I mean, anyway, it's going to be it would be a nightmare to police that as an academic teacher, I think.
I remember back in the 1870s when I was born that the biggest thing for us when we were at school, high school, was the arrival of the calculator. And until then, we had log tables and slide rules and all sorts of shit. And it was just like, you know, just my brain does not work with maths and numbers at all. So slide rules and log tables and everything was just a complete foreign language to me. In comes the calculator, and it was banned at my school. You weren't allowed to use a calculator, but, you know, everyone had one anyway. And eventually they had to, you know, relent, you know, just say, okay, well, we can't stop the tide of progress. You can use your calculator. But it took them, you know, a couple of years.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's it makes you wonder: is it going to make people less valid? You know, more stupid, less valid kind of thing. But then, at the same time, maybe that like the one thing I think that AI certainly at the moment is yet to reproduce or replace when it comes to humans is like creativity.
Well, a year ago, I would agree with you. As a creative writer myself, I write novels and stuff, as well as business books. So a year ago, I would have said, yeah. Now with Claude and certainly the next model of Claude, because where Claude is at the moment, as long as you put the prompts in and all the background material, you can write a novel, and it'll come around about 40,000 words. The next iteration of Claude, you'll be able to write that 60,000 word business book. And it'll remember, because at the moment, Claude has a real struggle with it. Chapter 1, by the time it gets down to chapter 22, it's forgotten what's in chapter 1, and it's forgotten some of the characters' names. Next iteration of Claude, seamless. And it'll, you know, you just feed him what you want it to come out, and bang, it'll come out. And that's in, 6 months' time?
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly it's evolved. Like even like when you look at the GPT from 3 through to, you know, almost 5, they say, I don't know how true it is, but they were saying that GPT 5 will have an average IQ of 175 or something.
Don't doubt it in the slightest. Yeah,
higher than any human. I think Albert Einstein and Elon Musk are both about 140 or something. So it's pretty crazy.
I posted somewhere about 8 months ago some comments from a conference of very important creative writers. And they were saying at that conference, and this is where academics and all that sort of stuff, they were saying that at that stage, Claude and ChatGPT, they were very early. And they were saying they could write better than 80% of the human population.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
Without question.
So now, when you're looking at ChatGPT, 1 as it's now, because they've such an advance from 4 to now, they've started numbering again because it's just like exponentially huge leap.
Is that right?
Yeah. It now thinks. ChatGPT 1 now thinks for itself, so it can create its own answers rather than just regurgitate what it's learnt before. It can now actually, you can watch it think about what whatever problem you've given it, and it will come up with some new solution you never would have thought of, but it's actually thought through the problem rather than just spit something out really quickly. Incredible.
I mean, and again, all of this has happened in like literally the space of 12 months. Imagine what's coming.
Oh, look, Matt, we can have a podcast in 12 months' time, and everything we're talking about here will probably be totally different.
Did you, again, slightly out of context, but I find it interesting that no one, neither of us in this call have mentioned Google's AI Gemini for pretty good reasons.
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if you saw in the on YouTube the other day or whatever it was, where like the AI was basically hating on humans, and it was like, you're useless waste of space, and the best thing you could do would be to go and kill yourself. And like, it was like, what the fuck?
Well, the same happened with Microsoft 2 or 3 years ago. They tried to train up an AI bot 3-4 years ago or something, and so they fed it Twitter. And within like 2 or 3 days, they had to shut the bot down because it just turned into this vile, nasty, homophobic, racist.
That was when it was moderated. That was when they were pulling shit down. Different decks.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, right. So anyway, look, it's been a good chat. I feel like we could probably go on forever and just wind up down many different tangents. But I guess in the interest of trying to like pull it back to like some level of relevancy to you guys out there that are listening or watching this, what do you think is a good framework to get started?
If you're looking to play with AI, I would get the free models. You can get free ChatGPT, free Claude, free Perplexity.
Well, I'm probably more talking about like brand identity and voice.
Right.
Where do we start? I mean, like you can use the way I see it is you need to have the brand identity and voice defined before the tools are any use to you.
Yes, absolutely. So you go to Perplexity and you say, can you create for me a brand identity and tone of voice. And this is the background information about my business. Here's some documents. I'm going to feed you these documents that, PDFs that I've, documents that I've written before for the business. My website, if I've got a website, is, this URL, please analyze that. And it'll go away, do all these things, analyze, come back, and it'll give you, it might take a couple of minutes, but it'll give you a document with all of those things for you. Including some suggestions about color, in terms of the color of your portfolio of websites or whatever. It's brilliant, dead easy. Or you can hire me, and I'm expensive, so it's one or the other.
Or they can hire you and to go and enter it into Perplexity for them.
Bugger! Don't you say that.
Classic. Well, it's been a good chat. I would actually really love to have this conversation again in 12 months and see what's changed. So maybe we'll
let's book it in
the calendar. Yeah,
get your people to call my people, and we'll put it together.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. All right. Well, I hope that was useful for you guys. If you have any questions around this, if you have any experiences around this so far with what, anything we've discussed around brand, voice, like any of those kind of things, or anything, if you like maybe in the AI, things that are working, things that aren't, like let us know in the comments wherever you see this come through. Again, we'd love to get your feedback on this. I just want to thank you once again, Lee, for joining us.
No problem. And look, if you go to my website, leehopkins.com/newsletter and sign up for my newsletter, there's a PDF with some extremely valuable information about communicating in this Australian business market. And you probably don't know, but if you're in Adelaide, you need to talk to your prospects and clients slightly differently than if you were living in Melbourne, and slightly differently from Sydney and from Brisbane and from Perth, or regional. There's different little nuances, but different little ways that you need to communicate to be most effective. And that's in the PDF as well.
You know, on that topic, actually, I remember reading somewhere, or I can't remember the exact context, but it was going back like quite a few years now, and I was looking into dialect, and I was trying to figure out why. I noticed that we had some friends that were living in Perth, and I could pick up that they sounded slightly different, the way they would pronounce things. And I went and did a bit of research on it, and what I found out was when you look at Australia as a Western country, it's only been around for just over a couple hundred years, whatever, and typically with dialect, it will take 250 odd years for dialects to form within a given area, that's been established, whatever. And so we're starting to see that now in different places throughout Australia, because we're sort of getting to that age where different dialects are starting to form in different locations. And I thought that was really interesting.
If you're not from South Australia and you talk to a South Australian, particularly Adelaidean, they will sound very English. We say things like bath rather than bath. It's and you can tell if someone's from Queensland.
English, right?
Sorry?
But for context, you are English.
Yes, but I came here when I was 10, but then I got naturalised, served in the armed forces, and so my identity is Australian. I've spent nearly all my life here.
Sure, but if you talk, I can hear the English. So I'm thinking, if that's Adelaide, I'm freaking way out of tune here, because.
But if you talk to someone in Queensland, I mean, you know this from where you live. Queensland's not far away from you. You talk to Queensland, it's different. It's different again. So there are those differences, and my little PDF will hopefully help you see that.
Good. Well, I'm going to go get that. That's great. All right, awesome. Look, thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I'm going to put links to everything that all your websites and carry on, and I'll find these books off the back of the call and stick them in the show notes. So if any of you guys want to go do some reading or listening, are there ebooks as well? We have a lot of ebook a lot of book listeners as tradies.
And I haven't yet, because to read a book takes a long time to record and edit. So I haven't got into it yet, because I'm, like most tradies, I'm time poor. But it's one of those, in the new year I will get to it, sort of things.
I can get one of my AIs to record that book for you if you want. But
unfortunately with voice, they're almost there in being able to mimic your voice, but it's just not quite there. But 6 months. Yeah,
it's coming, but it's not there yet. Anyway. Yeah. Okay, well, that, listeners and viewers, is a wrap.
New Zealand-based home renovation company, 6,593% ROAS. Sydney-based solar company, 2,700% ROAS. Hunter region-based bathroom renovation company, 5,616% ROAS. Melbourne-based building company, 13,182% return on ad spend. Adelaide-based solar company, 2,881% return on ad spend. Guys, the list goes on and on. If you're a trade-based business and you work with projects like roofing, solar, bathroom renovations, kitchen renovations, anything like that, head across to tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Tradie.wiki/pod for podcast. Book in a conversation. It is game changing.